Hi everyone. Welcome to Wednesday night currently. So today I posted a note asking people on my Instagram story, asking what kind of videos we would like. I'm going to be posting a series of videos on, pardon my sniffles guys, it's allergy season I guess. But asking people, would you rather me do a video on injury prevention or increasing awareness? Avoid injury or increasing awareness. And four people, well, 4-1 is what it was. 4-1 said I would love to increase my awareness. So that's what we're going to do today. And really, you get a twofer because you're going to avoid injury when you increase your body awareness. So apologies here, I'm looking at Instagram and Facebook at the same time. I'm pretty stoked it's actually working. What you're going to need, you're going to need space for you to lie down, and I may or may not join you here in my home studio. I might talk to you from the floor. I might just sit here. It's a pretty calming thing. So what you're going to learn here is you're going to learn how to increase your body awareness. And you can use this tool no matter where you are. Once you have this, you're going to be able to, pardon me, I hate allergy season. You're going to be able to check in with yourself at any point and notice if you have pain, if you have tension, where that's coming from, what motions exacerbate it. You can check in with yourself in the middle, like when you first wake up in the morning, before you go to bed, while you're playing, while you're typing, while you're doing anything. But it all starts with honing in on this awareness that you don't know that you have yet or you haven't developed. So that's what we're going to develop tonight. And it starts with you lying flat, if at all possible. Please lay flat on the floor. If you have a mat, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. A bed is fine. But ideally, lying flat is more helpful than sitting in a chair. So I'm going to be talking to you like you're lying flat on the ground. If you are in a chair, if you're driving, hopefully not watching this while you're driving, or if you're a passenger in a car, or whatever, while you're doing this, adapt this to you while we're going, okay? So first things first, I want you to lay comfortably in a position, whichever that position is on the floor. And I also want you to notice that there is no right or wrong while we're doing this. There is no judgment here. There is no supposed to, there's no should, there's nothing you're supposed to be doing with this, okay? This is just how you are is fine. And that's what I want you to observe. This is all about observation and becoming more aware of your body in space, no matter what you're doing. It's not about, I should be in this posture, I should be doing this, that, the other, okay? So to start, I'm going to have you lie flat on the ground if you can. Get comfortable. And whenever you're ready, by the way, as we're going along with this, if you're not able to lie flat on the ground and you are watching this, feel free to drop your questions in the chat and I will answer them as I go because I'm going to be posting these for you guys to watch later. Feel free to rewatch this at any time. It should be extremely helpful. And anybody who's been to Florida State, I adapted this from Ava Omser's dynamic integration class, which comes from Feldenkrais. So if you were wondering if this sounds familiar, if you've been to FSU, yes, it does. So we're going to start with you lying flat on the ground. You can keep your eyes open or closed. I tend to think closed is a little easier to pay attention to. Actually, close your eyes. So we're lying flat on the ground. And I want you to notice what part of your left foot is touching the floor. Is your foot turned in any kind of certain direction? As my teacher would say, which direction are your toes looking? Okay? And then I want you to come up your foot to your ankle. How much space is there between your ankle and the floor? Okay? And I don't want you to actually touch. I want you to just think about that. How much space do you think is between your left ankle and the floor? And then I want you to come up to your left calf, and we're just going to trace that line. What part of your left calf is touching the floor? And again, if you're seated, are you aware of your left calf? Is it touching anything? Is it touching the seat? Is it touching your other leg? Is it touching wherever you are? What part of your left calf is touching what? The inside, the outside, the middle. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to keep going with the floor analogy, okay? And then I want you to come up to your knee, and how much space is between your knee and the floor? Compare that space to the space underneath your left ankle and the floor. And then we're going to go up your leg on your hamstring. What part of your hamstring is touching the floor? Do you notice any tension as we go? Do we notice any pain, any tension? Is your foot and your leg, are they rotated one direction or another? And what about your left hip as we go up? Now your left hip is on the floor, or your left hip if you're seated or if you're driving, or I keep saying driving. Nobody's watching a Facebook live video or an Instagram live video while you're driving, right? But if you're in a car, if you're in a chair, no matter where, if you're in a practice room or on the floor, what part of your left hip is touching the floor? Do you notice any tension there? Is there any pain? Is there anything going on in that left hip? Okay, and then I want you to go up to your low back. How much space is there between your low back and the floor? And is it, if you compare that space between your low back and the floor, compare that space to your low back, to the space underneath your knee, to the space underneath your left ankle. And I don't want you to touch just yet, but just be aware of how much space you think is between your low back and the ground. Or if you're seated, between you and whatever you're seated on. Is there something behind you? Do you notice any pain or discomfort, tension in your low back? Again, there's no right or wrong here. There's no judgment. There is no should. You are just paying attention to your low back. What does that feel like? Okay? And we go back from your left hip up to your low back. What does that feel like? And then I want you to trace bone by bone by bone of your back all the way up to your left shoulder blade. And if you're lying on the floor, what part of your left shoulder blade is lying on the floor? It's like a little wing, right? Could you draw it? If I asked you to draw your left shoulder blade, could you draw it? Okay, what part of your left shoulder blade is touching the floor? Or if you're seated, is touching the chair, or is touching the wall, or wherever you are you aware of your left shoulder blade? Do you feel the inside? Do you feel that ridge? What about the top of your shoulder blade? Is there anything going on there? Where does your shoulder blade end as it goes into your left shoulder? And just be aware, again, no judgment here, just be aware. Do you notice anything in your left shoulder? Is there any kind of tension or grabbing or pain or anything going on in that left shoulder? Just curious. You're just noticing. Say hello, thank you. Nice to see you. And then I want you to travel down your left shoulder to the front of your shoulder. Can you feel on the inside of your shoulder without moving? Are you aware of it? What about the outside of your left arm? And if you want, bring your right hand out and touch along the outside of your left arm. When is the last time you did that without, being cold? And are you aware of where your left arm is now in space? And we go back to you on the floor. What part of your left elbow is touching the floor? And is there space between your left elbow and, if there is, compare that space to the space under your low back and the space under your left knee and the space underneath your left ankle. And then we're going to travel down your forearm, noticing all the while, if you don't move your fingers, do you notice where your finger muscles are in your forearm? Okay, how much space is there underneath your left wrist and the floor if you're lying on the floor? If you're not lying on the floor, where's your left wrist? Where is that junction of hand and arm? What is touching what? Don't move anything, just notice, just observe. I want you to notice what's going on between your left wrist, left forearm, and the floor. And then pay attention to your left fingers. How are they curled? Are they curled? Are they straight? Are you doing something? Are they connected? Are they touching? And again, if you're on the floor, what position are your hands taking? Are they upended? Are they down? Are they curved? Are you doing something interesting with them? No right or wrong here, just observation. All is okay. And I want you to notice, one finger at a time. We're going to start with your thumb. I want you to be aware of the space around your left fingernail, thumbnail. Can you feel it without moving it? What about your left knuckle? What about this knuckle? That fleshy part of your thumb, without touching it, can you feel it? Are you aware of it? Is there anything going on there? Do you feel any pain? Do you feel any motion? Do you feel any throbbing, any tension? Just observe. We're not trying to correct, we're just noticing. And what about that fleshy part in between your thumb and your hand? Anything going on there? When I mentioned which way is your hand, is it flat, is it curved, is it straight? Did you get any tension going on there, right? And then I want you to go finger by finger. We're going to trace your first finger up to your middle finger. Notice where your fingers are touching the ground. And if you have any tension in any finger, from one finger in your left hand to the next, is there anything going on? And if there is, just say, hello, I notice you, thank you. And you will go back. And then we go back. And if you want to, we're going to go back down your left arm. And I want you to notice your fingers. If you think about your left forearm, where are your finger muscles? Have you ever thought about this? Now, if you're lying flat on the ground, which muscle with your finger goes to which area of your forearm? Ever so gently, I want you to move your first finger. Do you feel that muscle go all the way up to your elbow? Do you feel it move? We're just doing this, just barely moving. Does it change when you move from the tip of that finger? Do any other fingers move? What about your middle finger? What muscle goes there? And you barely have to move. And if you don't want to move, see if you can figure it out without moving your fingers. And then what about your ring finger and your pinky finger? Do you feel those muscles move without looking? And if you did one, do you notice when you move your pinky, the other fingers that might want to move, or your ring finger? Where do you feel it going down your forearm? Do you notice any tension? Is there any pain? Does it feel really loose? Does it feel relaxed? Does it feel good? Just observation, no right or wrong here. And then I want you to trace all the way back up your left arm, up to your left elbow, up to your left shoulder, which is now lying on the ground. And then we're going to go back up to your neck. And notice how much space is there between your neck and the floor, or if you're seated, between your neck and hopefully a headrest of some sort, or the wall. But if you're lying down, how much space is between your neck and the floor? And compare that space between your neck and the floor to the space underneath your low back. And compare that space underneath your neck to your low back to underneath your wrist and your elbow and your knee and your ankle, all on the left side. And you notice a difference. Can you tell what it is without moving? Do you think you could measure it without moving? How much space is between your neck and the floor? And if you want to check, now's the time to bring up your other hand and notice how much space is there between your neck and the floor. Do you have a curve? Is it touching the floor? Is there no curve? That's me. There's no right or wrong here. We're just noticing. Do you notice any tension? What part of your upper back is touching the floor? What part of your neck is touching the floor? What part of your head is touching the floor? Is there tension in any direction? Do you feel any tension in your jaw? We're going to go to your jaw. Do you have any tension in your jaw? Like me, do you have tension in your sinuses? I know, it's terrible. Do you have any congestion anywhere? Do you notice that if you were to think about your temples, is there anything going on in your temples that might feel better if it wasn't there? Just noticing. Where do I feel tension as I trace around my nose, around my eyes? Just thinking about it, not physically doing that, but just thinking about it. Where do I feel tension in my face? Where do I feel tension in my jaw? Where do I feel tension anywhere? Do I not feel tension at all? All is okay. And then I want you to go down, round about your ears. How do things feel there? Is your jaw hanging? What's your tongue doing in your mouth? Is it lying flat? Is it up? Is it high? Is it rounded? Is the back up? Is the front up? Is it touching anything? What part of your tongue is touching something? And then I want you to go back. Then we're going to go back to your neck. And how much space is there between your neck and the floor? And then, now that your left side is totally relaxed, because if I asked you to stand up, anybody who's been in my workshop would notice. Anybody who's been in an Ava Omsler's class, dynamic integration class, she would tell you to stand up. And you'd walk around the room, and everybody's left side would be longer than their right side, which is the most beautiful thing, because now you're more aware, but you're also super relaxed. And isn't that the best way to be? So, I'm not going to ask you to do that. This is just a quick awareness exercise. So we're going to go back to your neck. How much space is there between your neck and the floor? Do you have tension on one side of your neck versus the other? Is there tension high or low? Is there no tension at all? And then we're going to go to your right side. What about your right shoulder blade? Well, let's go back. What about the right side of your neck versus the left side of your neck? Do you notice any difference? Is there any pain? Is there any tension? Does it feel normal? All is fine. No judgment, just observation. And then we're going to go to your right shoulder. What do you notice on your right shoulder? What part of your right shoulder blade is touching the floor? Could you draw it? And if you were to draw it, would it look just like your left shoulder blade? So I want you to compare what part of your right shoulder blade is touching the floor versus the left shoulder blade, which is touching the floor. So we're going to compare right to left, and if you were to draw them, would they look different? Is there any pain or discomfort or tension? And just notice. All looks okay. Now I'm going to trace over to that right shoulder. Do you notice you have any pain or tension? What part of your right shoulder is touching the ground? What about your right arm? The outside of your right arm, do you feel it differently than the left side now that you've not touched it? What part of your right elbow is touching the ground? How much space is there around your elbow? Or is there no space? Depending on which way your hand is on the ground, there might not be any space. And then what part of your right forearm is on the ground? And what about your right wrist and your left wrist? Is there space between your wrist and the floor on the right side or the left side? And if so, compare the right side versus the left side. How much space is there between your right side, your right wrist on the floor, and how much space is there between your left wrist and the floor? Or if you're just sitting here right now, what part of your right wrist is touching something? And what part of your left wrist is touching something? And notice the difference. Are you holding your hands differently? Do you have more tension in one hand, in your right hand versus your left, or your left versus your right? Again, there's no judgment here. We're just noticing. Is there something going on in the right hand versus the left? What about your right thumb versus your left thumb? Do you notice anything different when you think about it? What about the fleshy part of between your right thumb and your left thumb? Your right index finger versus your left index finger. And on we go down the fingers and back. And then I want you to trace your awareness all the way up your right arm to your right shoulder. And then we're going to go down your spine. And now you're still lying on the floor. We're going to trace your spine down, bone by bone by bone by bone, till we get to your low back again. And now compare the left side of your low back, like we did before, to the right side of your low back. And does it feel the same? Is there any difference? Do you notice a shift one direction or another? High or low or front or back? Or is your pelvis lying on the floor the same way on both sides? I don't know. Could be different. Depends on how your feet are. Depends on how your body's made. Depends on you. Do you notice any pain in your low back or tension? And then I want you to go all the way down to your right hip, your right glute. If you're sitting or if you're lying, what part of your right glute or your right hip is on the floor or is on the chair? And compare that right glute to the left glute. Does it feel any different? Do you have any pain? Do you have any tension? Does something feel different on one side than another? And if you're just joining us and you have to leave, that's fine, but I would love your comments as you're noticing, oh, I didn't notice I had this before, or I didn't notice this, but now I do. Would love your comments. You're not alone. Every time I give this workshop, somebody has a I had no idea moment, and it's always fun to see where it is, and then suddenly somebody goes, well, me too, I just didn't want to say anything. So we're going to go down your right hip. And if you're lying on the floor, what part of your right hip is touching the floor and your left hip is touching the floor? What about your right hamstring and your left hamstring? Are they the same? Are they both touching the floor at the same point? Is there tension? Is there pain? They feel pretty loose. They feel pretty good. Are your legs straight? Are your feet bent? If your legs are straight, what part of your right knee is touching the floor? And is there space underneath your right knee? Is there space underneath your left knee? Compare the spaces underneath both knees. And if they are not touching the floor, notice what part, compare your right knee to your left. What part of your right knee is touching what? What part of your left knee is touching what? And then we go down to your right calf. What part of your right calf is touching the floor? Compare it to your left. Is your foot more turned outwards on one leg than the other? Are they both pointing straight? Is one pointing in? Compare your right calf to your left calf. What's going on there? Are they the same? Are they different? Okay. Now go to your right ankle. How much space is between your ankle and the floor? And compare that to the space underneath your left ankle on the floor. And is that different? And now we get to your right foot. And I want you to think about your right foot. Is your right foot pointing the same direction as your left foot? Are they pointing straight? And if you're lying on the floor and you think they are, I want you to look and see if they are pointing straight. And if they're not, isn't that interesting? And then I want you to look and see, okay, is one foot pointing out, the other foot pointing in? Is one foot straight, the other pointing a different direction? Are they pointing the same direction? It's just observation. There's no right or wrong. It's just interesting, right? And then I want you to pay attention to your feet. Do you have any tension in your feet? Can you feel the arch of your right foot compared to the arch of your left foot? Without wiggling your toes, can you feel every toe? Which toe in your right foot do you not feel? There's always a toe in one foot that you don't feel anything. What is a toe that you don't feel? That's where your body map is fuzzy. Okay, wiggle your toes. Can you wiggle an individual toe? No? So, that brings us to close to the end of our very, very quick body awareness session. It's as simple as that. Now, if you guys were in a live workshop with me, I would be asking you, okay, who felt something somewhere that they didn't know was there in the first place? Now that we've gone through this whole exercise, and because I'm going to be posting this, please, 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 type your answers down below, because we want to know. There are so many of us that go, I had no idea my right jaw felt weird and my left wrist was tight. That's weird. I had no idea. You know what? My left sit bone was higher than my left. Or my right low back felt different than my left low back, or vice versa, or whatever. Or when I mentioned about, can you feel your fingers? When you move one finger, do you feel that muscle go all the way down to your elbow? If you do it now, I bet you do. You also feel this move. You also feel this move. You feel all of this move, and you probably didn't feel it before. Does it feel weird to know that you can feel your muscles moving from here? So now when you play your instrument, or you type, or when you do whatever you do, that movement originates from here. So many of us get injuries and issues with our forearms, and we think or wrists, and we think the wrists are the problem. But now your awareness is increased, and how many of us might be more aware that the problem stems from farther up the chain. So, does your problem possibly come from forearms, elbow, shoulder, back, neck? You can have finger problems that start in the neck. You can have wrist problems that start in the forearm. So hopefully this exercise was helpful to you, and I could go on and on and on and on. Thank you guys for joining me. Please leave your comments below, and if you enjoyed this, share it with somebody else, because quick backstory, I went to Florida State, and my professor Ava Amsler, this is Levi, my professor Ava Amsler is the one who kind of taught this, and we would lie on the floor for an hour every Thursday morning, and the best part of it was she said, and if you fall asleep, you still hear my voice, it's okay. What professor lets you fall asleep in class, right? I think we all got A's, but it was incredible. the amount of awareness we had with our bodies while we were playing or doing anything else was just increased tenfold. I was incredibly aware of whatever I was doing, no matter what. And awareness is one of the things we have to be able to even notice if we're in pain. Because pain is a symbol something's going on. It's not good, right? So, awareness lets you know not just if something hurts. I have a client that only knows if something hurts. She couldn't tell you otherwise. But awareness, increasing your body awareness like you just did right now, also helps you know when things are good. It's too easy to focus on only when things are bad. But did you notice when we were doing this exercise what felt good? Did you notice, hey, I don't have tension here. Oh, this feels really nice. Yeah, I did notice that this felt like the same as the other side, or my jaw was slack, or my tongue was hanging out here, or whatever. Notice the good things too. They're totally valid. Your body doesn't just rely on pain as a signal. But yeah, she is amazing. Somebody's commented, Ava's amazing. She is amazing. And anybody who doesn't know, she's retiring from Florida State this year. She's going back to Switzerland, which breaks my heart for everybody who doesn't get to study with her. But I'm really happy for her. But I want you to take this exercise and please let me know if you notice, I did notice that there was something here or there, and I didn't notice it before. Or if there's another body awareness technique that you haven't had before, or that you've done before that you've also had similar results, share with us because there are a lot of awareness techniques. This is just one of my favorites, and we can go way more in depth. This was very quick. I know it's been 26 minutes, but it felt really quick to me. I felt like we just started, and we actually covered your entire body in those 26 minutes. We could have gone way more in depth. So this is something that is going to be in just one of the modules of my group coaching program, which ensures musicians' longevity. And if you're interested, let me know. And in the meantime, comment below with what you saw and what you liked. And thank you for joining me, guys. This was fun. We'll see you later.